Zimbabwe, exit plan activated. ED packs his bags and flies to Belarus, and Zimbabwe is asking very reasonable questions. Right. I need you to sit down. No, seriously, you better sit all the way down, because what I am about to tell you requires a stable surface, a strong cup of tea, and possibly someone standing nearby in case you need emotional support. The president of Zimbabwe, the man who told you with a completely straight face that Zimbabwe is open for business, he has left the country quietly, in the dark, on a luxury jet, like a man who just heard his name called on Zimbabwean debt collectors radio. No press release, no farewell wave, no motorcade, no George Charamba standing at a podium explaining anything to anybody. Because George Charamba, as we have established on this channel, he has been quieter than a library on a Sunday since this whole saga began. Emerson Mnangagwa, Zimbabwe, president, commander-in-chief, architect of the Second Republic, sneaked out of Zimbabwe like a tenant leaving an Airbnb at 3 a.m. because he broke the shower and doesn't want to pay for it. And the destination, Belarus. Belarus, not Paris, not Singapore, not even Johannesburg, where you can at least get a decent more experience. The man flew to Belarus, a country that is under international sanctions, run by a man that even Russia sometimes looks at and sideways. A country whose president, Alexander Lukashenko, is so internationally isolated that his national airline had to beg America to please lift the flight bans so their Boeing planes could get spare parts. This is where Zimbabwe's president went for his secret holiday. Panapa, Zimbabwe, we have every single receipt, every detail, and frankly, no chill whatsoever. The most expensive secret in Zimbabwean history. Let us begin with the bill, because somebody paid for this trip. And that somebody, brace yourself, is you. The aircraft was a luxury Boeing 737 business jet, registration A6 DAS, owned by Royal Jet of the United Arab Emirates. A plane that costs $18,000 per hour to charter. The total bill for this single unannounced trip over $500,000. $500,000 for a trip nobody told you about. To a destination that was kept secret, with no delegation, no ministers, no official business declared to the public. Meanwhile, and I am just going to put this out there, Zimbabwe's public hospitals are reportedly running out of basic painkillers. Teachers are fighting for decent salaries. The roads look like the government decided that potholes were actually a feature, not a bug. But the president needed a $500,000 jet to sneak to Minsk. You know what? Fine. Let's just look at the math. Your average Zimbabwean teacher's salary, roughly $200 a month after Tabisama taxes. That single flight cost the equivalent of 208 years of a teacher's salary. One flight, one night, one secret trip to go visit Europe's most isolated dictator. Zimbabwe Vision 2030 is doing great. Absolutely thriving. And here is my personal favorite detail. Because Belarus is under Western sanctions, the EU has banned Belarusian carriers from all European airspace ever since Lukashenko literally forced a passenger plane to land mid-flight just to arrest a journalist who was on board. The flight could not go directly. It had to stop and refuel in Egypt first. A sanctions detour through Cairo on your dime. This man routed his secret escape flight through North Africa to avoid triggering international compliance systems, and nobody in State House thought this was worth mentioning to the Zimbabwean public. Transparency, new dispensation, open for business. The farewell dinner that accidentally exposed everything. Now, here is where the story gets genuinely, beautifully chaotic. How do we know the president was gone? Not from any government announcement, not from Charamba, who by this point is the communication strategy of a very shy rock. We know because of a dinner. Chief Justice Luke Malava retired on May 14th. And listen, Luke Malaba is not just any judge. This is the man who legally blessed the 2017 coup, the man who threw out the 2018 election challenge, the man who essentially served as Mnangagwa's personal judicial shield for nearly a decade, the judicial equivalent of that one friend who always backs up your alibi no matter what. Zimbabwe held a grand state farewell dinner for this man. Ministers came, generals came, top officials came in their finest suits, smelling of expensive cologne. It was a whole occasion. The guest of honor presiding over the entire evening, VP Kembo Mohade, not Mnangagwa, Mohade. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. Your most loyal employee, the person who covered for you, defended you, took professional bullets for you, bent the law in directions it was not designed to bend, is having their retirement part, and you cannot attend because you are in Minsk with a sanctioned dictator. You did not even send a card, ED, not even WhatsApp voice note. Nothing. Mohad had to stand up there representing, looking honestly like a man who showed up to someone else's wedding and somehow ended up as the best man. Malava spent years protecting this man's presidents, and ED couldn't even zoom in. Chiwenga's just sitting there in Harare, smiling. And now, family, now we get to the most cinematic part of the entire story. While Mnangagwa is somewhere between Cairo and Minsk on $500,000 jet, while Mohad is flying to Botswana for the funeral of former President Festus Mogae, the most powerful man on Zimbabwean soil is sitting in Harare wearing a very sharp suit with a Zimbabwean flag pinned on his lapel, radiating the energy of a man who has absolutely nowhere to be and all the time in the world. Constantino Chiwenga, just there, present, calm, watching. This is the man who quoted scripture in public about kings who grab extra years and destroy their own legacy. And everybody in the room knew exactly who he was talking about, including the person he was talking about. Right? Zimbabwe. This is the same man whose faction is being monitored by the CIO. The president's own intelligence service is watching his vice president's meetings in the same government with taxpayer money, watching each other. This is the most expensive reality TV show Zimbabwe has ever produced, and nobody even gets to vote anyone off. Chiwenga is not making noise. He's not posting angry tweets. He's not calling press conferences. He's simply there, running the domestic executive space, greeting officials, appearing at events, looking more presidential. Zimbabwe. Looking more presidential by the hour. You know that energy when someone moves out of a shared house and the roommate who stayed behind immediately starts rearranging the furniture and telling guests, make yourself at home. That is the energy in Harare right now. Right. Belarus, the world's most dramatic backup plan. Let us now have a serious conversation in our comedic way about what Belarus actually represents in this story, because it is bigger than tractors, much bigger. Lukashenko survived his own political apocalypse. In 2020, he stole an election so blatantly that his own people flooded the streets by the hundreds of thousands. The entire democratic world cut him off, sanctions piled up, and he's still there. How? Russia begged him. He captured every institution. He made the cost of removing him higher than the cost of tolerating him. Sound familiar? Zimbabwe and Belarus signed a strategic cooperation roadmap covering industry, agriculture, military training, and mineral access, running all the way through 2026 to 2030. Military training, mineral access, running to 2030, the exact same year Mnangagwa's extended term would end. This is not an agricultural exchange program. Family, this is a man taking notes on how to stay in power when the whole world is telling you your time is up. And intelligence sources tracking the chartered aircraft report multiple quiet flights to Dubai in recent weeks. The gold allegations, claims that national reserves are being moved through private channels, remain unverified by independent sources. But as the great philosophers once said, where there is smoke that smells this specific, there is usually a very suspicious fire. Right. Before any of this May chaos, Zimbabwe's diaspora had already delivered their verdict loudly in British weather, which, if you know British weather, tells you how serious they were. On April 18th, Independence Day, Zimbabweans gathered outside Zimbabwe House on the Strand in London to protest Cape 3 and demand a national referendum. Organized by the Citizens Protest Movement, people traveled from cities across the UK, slept in hotels the night before, stood in the cold drizzle holding signs because they refused to accept a bill that would strip them of the right to vote for their president entirely. The Mnangagwa regime's response was to send people to investigate who paid for the hotel accommodation. The president of Zimbabwe deployed intelligence sources to investigate hotel bookings in London. Sir, with all due respect, you spent $500,000 on a secret jet to Belarus. You are not in a position to question anybody else's accommodation budget. The bottom line, he is coming back to a very different house. Mnangagwa will land back in Harare. The motorcade will appear, Charamba will mambo something, state media will post photos that look suspiciously recent, but here is what is waiting for him when he walks back through that door. 7 Constitutional Court judges ready to rule on whether his cabinet illegally approved Cape 3, May 20th, Parliament adjourned until June, a vice president who has been managing domestic affairs and frankly looks like he has redecorated. A cartel publicly imploding, Chivayo calling Matinyarare stupid on Jim audio while simultaneously failing to deny being Zimbabwe's biggest gold dealer. War veterans in court, Catholic bishops on record, lawyers sharpened, diaspora activated, and a $500,000 bill that somebody needs to explain to the Zimbabwean public. He went to Belarus, he spent your money, he came back to a country that was busy organizing against him while he was gone. The audacity, the absolute unmatched audacity. Zimbabwe is not a private jet. It is not a sanctions dodging refueling stop in Cairo. It belongs to the people standing in British drizzle on Independence Day holding signs. It belongs to the teachers, the nurses, the soldiers on starvation wages, the war veterans in court fighting for a constitution. And the Mtapa Times will be here every single night, every single day, reminding everybody of that fact. Stay loud, stay dangerous, and for the love of everything holy, somebody please explain to the president what transparency means. Subscribe to Mzinda Webano, Zimbabwe's most unapologetically bold voice. Drop your funniest take on ED's Belarus adventure in the comments. Where do you think he really went? Is Belarus plan B? Is the exit plan activated? Smash the like button, share this everywhere, and support the channel through join and super thanks. We are going the full distance, family, with facts, fire, and absolutely no chill. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching.